So the process of the week that I've chosen is one-on-one meetings. And I'm not going to go into performance review, but I'm going to mention this one as well. So employee one-on-one meetings are very simple. And there's a process in the library called employee one-on-one meetings. This is a way that you communicate with your employees. Now, if you do this once a week, I think it's great. This says usually once a week. Even if you do it once a month, it's fine. It's better than nothing. So all that happens in these one-on-one meetings is that the manager makes time to sit down with that employee, even for a half an hour. An hour is good, but half an hour is fine too. You don't have time not to do meetings like this. So if that question of, I don't have time to sit and have a one-on-one meeting with every employee every week or every month is in your head, you don't have time not to do this because this is essential for management. Sit down in that meeting, talk about how the work's going. Look at the job description. Go to the dashboard in TouchStone. Go to the org chart. Look at the job description. Talk about how the work is going. That's it. It could be as simple as, how are sales follow-up going? Or how did this project happen? How are you doing? How's your week been? So questions like that, where you have with them right in front of them while you're talking to them, are a great way to check in with your employees, but then to also reinforce the processes, reinforce the job description, have it be the way that you communicate. So there's a form inside this process where you can put, items to discuss, goals achieved, goals from last period, things to resolve, notes. So you can the manager can fill out all those information. It's like you're preparing the agenda and save it back to TouchStone. And then call it up before the meeting. You can print it out if you must, or you can have it, on your phone or on your computer and look at the agenda and go through it. So this is, again, just about stopping for a minute and communicating with the employee. If you implement a meeting system like this, even if it's once a month, then you're going to start to do other time-saving things. Like you're going to say to yourself, I'm not going to go knock on their door or send them an email about that right now. I'm going to save it for the meeting. So you start saving things for the meeting, saving them for the meeting. Not big problems that have to be handled right away. Put those in the variable category. Things that can wait for the meeting, save them for the meeting, because it's much more efficient rather than reacting, to sit and say, okay, there's this problem. Instead of just talking about it as we're walking down the hall, let's look at the process for that, or let's decide we need a process for that and make it more of a strategic thing in a meeting. So I'm going to mention performance reviews just here for a minute, and then we'll talk about how to use these things that I just showed you in the dashboard. So let me go back to this one. If you're using the job descriptions as a management tool, you're having your one-on-one meetings, this becomes kind of like an agenda for topics of conversation. Even in department meetings that you might be having for like the sales department, you can decide on like a process of the month if you want to. So every month you review one process on the job description, just as a way of checking in on the documentation. How's it going? Does anyone have any ideas on how it could be better? Great, it's perfect. Move on to the next agenda item. So doing things like that where you're discussing the processes in these one-on-one meetings or even in department meetings is great. So you're having your one-on-one meetings, you're using the job descriptions, and then you get to the end of the year where it's time for a performance review. The job description is the performance review. It's another cool thing about the job description. You look at our performance review process in the Guiding the Business library, and it steps you through this. Also in the Resource Center, there's a video on it as well, on how to use the performance review process. But basically, this is the performance review. So what we have you do is you take the job description, you literally copy and paste it into the performance review form, and then you give a rating on each of these processes. How have they been doing on sales follow-up? How have they been doing on setting appointments? How have they been doing on building strategic alliances? You give a rating and you put comments. Now, if you've been talking about this job description and these processes in your one-on-one meetings for an entire year, when you get to do the performance review, and all the performance review is just a recap of these processes, it's going to be so easy to fill that performance review out and to give it. There's going to be no surprises. They're going to know exactly where they're at, and it's going to be very tangible, which is the most difficult thing about performance reviews, making it tangible. Because if I don't have processes to refer to, if we haven't been discussing how you've been doing in a tangible way all year, when we get down to review time, it's just going to be whatever I can remember. And if I have to say difficult things and I can't back them up with actual real information, then I'm just kind of making it up. And that's a really difficult type of review to have with an employee. So performance review, that's the other way to kind of ultimately use this job description as a management tool. So let's go to the dashboard here. So first thing I want to show you is the new employee training piece. So if we go down here to this person, so I'm in management review right now. And since I'm Sam's manager, I see his job description. I see his control panel. So these are all the processes from the sales assistant's job description. And when Sam logs into TouchStone, he logs in with his own username and password, and he's going in and using and completing these processes. So if I'm doing new employee training for Sam, I'd start with his daily to-do list. So we go to this process. I say, look, Sam, here's the daily to-do checklist. This is how you do it. This is how you go through it. This is what it's here for. So I'm giving him a training, showing it to him, making sure he understands it. When I'm happy with his training, he's demonstrated that he understands how to use this checklist. I can put in notes. So these are, training notes that I could add if I wanted to add notes. And then I flip this box that says trained, and I save the note. Now if we go back, trained, okay, there it is. Now if we go back to his management review list, then I go to the next process. Go down, hit trained all. I'm happy with his training. And then I go back, and then I see these check marks. For some reason, this one didn't save. But this is the green check is the indicator that he's been trained in that process. When he logs in, he sees the check, and I see it as his manager. Then I go to the next process. I'm training him. I hit the train check mark, and then he's trained in that process. So this is the new employee training. I go process by process in a timed way, give him a thorough training. You can even build tests into these processes using the custom form tool, which is kind of cool. Then the employee has to go in and take the test, and then you can review it here in management review. So I slowly check these off, and then when he's fully trained, there's going to be a green check mark next to every single one of these processes. So let's go back to the dashboard. So here's my control panel, and I'm going to show you the one-on-one meeting process. So here's that one-on-one meeting process. And when I select this, I could go down to the custom form. So I'm going to prepare for a meeting for an employee. I can save this as their name. I have just a blank notes field here. I can put it, when I save this, a date and time stamps it, but I can put the meeting date if I want in here. Items to discuss, so these are the things that I want to go over with him. And then when I fill out this agenda form, then I save it. It's going to date and time stamp it, and it saves this form back to TouchStone. So then, after I've had the meeting, I'm preparing for the next meeting. I can go here to this completed folder, and I can look back at the meeting we did last week and remind myself of kind of what I want to do this week. And then I also see all the meeting forms that I've had with him over the year. When I'm doing performance reviews, I go back to TouchStone and look at all of these for the whole year. And any of them that have information in them about things that we talked about that are relative to the performance review, I have it all right here, easy to find and use. In addition, if my manager ever wants to know if I'm doing my meetings and how my employees are doing, So if we look back here at the org chart, so if this person wants to know how I'm doing with all of these people, they can go and run a report because they have management review of me, and they can see all the agenda forms and what happened and who's doing what and how the employee's doing, which is great because one of the best things about upper level management, or can be the best thing, is when you can see what's going on with all of these people without having to ask them or without having to be there all the time, or without there having to be a problem before you find out. So that's another way that these one-on-one meetings can be really useful. And then I'll just show you performance review since we have 2 more minutes here. So I'm back on my control panel for manager, marketing, and sales. So here's the performance review. So here I go to performance review that I'm going to do for an employee. This one has a checklist in it that I might fill out. Here's the actual form itself. And then I go and fill this out for that employee. Put in their name. Here's where, and this happens on the process tools page, but this is where you cut and paste all the processes in from their job description. So this is the evaluation form. This is for the salesperson or whatever position it is. I go to their job description in TouchStone. I highlight, do right-click, copy, and then I paste the processes right in here. And then I give them a grade, based on how the rating is. We give you, if you use the library process, we give you this whole description here to use, which you can edit and make your own, but this is, I think, a pretty good way of doing it. And then you write in comments right here. Sometimes I cut and paste the comments from my one-on-one meeting forms too, because it's what I said 6 months ago is still relevant, and then I can cut and paste the comments in, and I can even say, we talked about this on this date and time. So these are all the processes from the job description, and you're just basically giving them a rating. Now there's our performance review form has other things in it. This one's not showing it, but it has long-term goals, and there's other stuff that can be relevant during a review. But this is really the heart of it. It's evaluating them on their processes, basically. So again, all this gets saved back to TouchStone. Once I save it, I can print it if you want a printed copy to file somewhere. But this review form itself is now saved back to TouchStone. And then a lot of times before I do reviews, I'll run a report to call up the reviews from last year. And then I can look at the review last year and use that to kind of inform this year as well. But what's nice about it is all this information is in TouchStone in one place, and it's not a scramble to kind of try to find where it all is.